Greg in Brooklyn, New York. Hey, Greg, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Ben, first-time caller.
Thank you.
I've been listening to your show for a while, and I really like your approach. I wanted to talk about charter schools, actually.
Okay.
And, basically, I'm kind of calling from a more libertarian perspective, although I wouldn't call it completely libertarian. I suppose arguing for charter schools argues for freer markets on the side of provisioning education. So basically, what I see is an education system, a public education system that's very centralized these days, and it's been that way for decades, and it's failing the kids in a lot of ways. I think you've talked a lot about, the rise in ADHD diagnoses, for example. And
I don't think that's our school system, Greg. We're graduating more people are graduating from high school now than at any time in the history of this country, and they're graduating with better qualifications and more skills than at any time in our history. As much as we like to hold up the 50s and 60s and 70s as a wonderful time, and you can argue that school was much more difficult back then, but a whole lot fewer people graduated from high school and went on to college.
Well, sure, but if you compare us to other countries, we're not doing that well, especially in the STEM.
I do not disagree with that at all.
Right, and there are reasons for this. If you look at it a different way, one of the major reasons is because of the centralized system in this case. Now, I'm not opposed to pooling collectively money.
Well, wait a second. You're saying other countries, Finland and what's the country in Asia, Singapore, have the best educational, primary and secondary educational systems in the world in terms of outcome.
Schools are great.
They are totally centralized.
But the way our system is set up, we will not transition to anything that will have measurable improvements because of the way our system. I mean, you can see how the Congress is working.
Yeah.
Here's the situation. Look at 2003 when George Bush, for example, signed the No Child Left Behind Act.
Right.
There are studies now that show that the ADHD rise in diagnoses is correlated, city by city, where it's been implemented with standardized testing.
Yeah, and I can tell you why.
Sure, go ahead.
I can tell you why. I mean, I've written 5 books on ADHD. I used to consult with school districts on this, and I'm really in the middle of that world. The reason why is because once teachers and students started getting measured by standardized tests, the race was on the part of parents and kids to figure out a way to have their kids perform better on tests. And if you have high levels of dopamine in your brain, you can focus for longer periods of time with greater attention. And so what happened? And so what happened was dopamine-stimulating drugs like methamphetamine, which is in Adderall, or dextroamphetamine, which is Dexedril, or Ritalin, and Focalin, which is the levulo form of Ritalin, that these drugs actually do for any student. You don't have to have ADHD. Anybody, if you take any of these drugs in relatively small doses, take them in large doses, you're hopped up like on cocaine. But even cocaine does this. Back in 1934, there was a guy by the name of Dr. Benson, as I recall, and he had what he called the magical mathematical pill. And they were literally selling these to school districts all across America. It was Benzedrine. In 1934, this guy had a national campaign, and he was selling these math pills that would help kids excel at math, and they do. And so what happens is that these kids and their parents are going to the doctors and saying, "I want to do better on the test. Give me some." And hey, I got ADD. I can't focus on an hour-long test. And if you take Ritalin, I can tell you, I've tried it. And I've seen this in thousands of cases of if you take Ritalin, you will be able to focus on the test better. There's all kinds of side effects to taking it, and it can make you crazy, but you can focus better on the test. And so when standardized testing came in, Ritalin came in with it.
And I agree with all that. And by the way, the point of my phone call is I wanted to highlight the policy that leads to these kinds of things. It's not just that people are taking Ritalin and Adderall and all these things, but homework has increased across the country. There are studies that show that more homework correlates with poorer performance on standardized tests, and yet these are systemic issues. You cannot turn the freight train around.
Yeah.
And there are.
Yeah, we need to go back to critical thinking skills and Socratic teaching.
Well, what I'm saying is there are actual solutions where technology right now you can replace textbooks with iPads. You can replace them with a marketplace of actual multimedia presentations that can be delivered to kids at home.
And yet those schools, those MOOC schools, where the professor is giving a lecture now to 1 million people on the internet and people are signing up for, they're failing horribly, Greg, because the experience is if you're not in the physical room with somebody and with other people who are learning, there is a completely different way that the brain processes that information. I don't see that as the solution, respectfully. I think that the solution is to change our teaching.